Right now, a local subcontractor says they are out thousands of dollars after mixed messages from city inspectors. And what's next for the state budget, now passed by both the Assembly and the Senate?
From the Channel3000.com Alert Center, this is News 3 Now at 10.
And thanks for joining us. A local subcontractor says they are out thousands of dollars because of a mistake made by the city of Madison. Now they want the city to pay them back. Amy Reed joins us now to explain what happened. Amy?
This was at the beginning of May, one of J.B. Creed's first projects for the construction season. But two inspectors telling them two different things got them off to a bad start.
Each day, J.B. Creed preps for the next day's work. But it's an old job that's still on their minds. They were getting ready to pour concrete floors for this development. One inspector for the city of Madison gave them the green ticket to go ahead.
Got two of the garage floors all poured out, and we were halfway done with the third one. And another inspector showed up and asked, "Do you normally pour without an inspection?"
The new inspector said the project wasn't up to code. They'd have to lay down a thermal break. With concrete hardening as they were speaking, Steindorf hurried as fast as he could to do what the inspector said.
We couldn't do it. I mean, the concrete was getting so hard that we had a hard time closing up our footsteps. Just when we decided to say, the heck with it, we'll finish what we can, and then we'll just have to cut the floor out to get the thermal break in the way he wants it.
He said back and forth with the code continued for days, ultimately costing them $10,000 in lost materials and labor. Since they said it was the inspector's fault for giving them the go-ahead, they think the city should pay them back. The inspection supervisor says it's not that simple.
They essentially chose to move forward with breaking up concrete and putting in a code-compliant solution, which was fine and appropriate, but they did it at their own choice without exploring what other options might be available.
Bono said any contractor that has an issue with what an inspector is saying should call him to figure out a solution before taking action.
In every circumstance, we want to be notified as soon as possible to explore whatever avenues there are.
But on the job, Steindorf said the inspector didn't give him many options, and now he just wants the city to make it right.
You don't argue with the inspector. I mean, that's just rule of thumb. If you get on the inspector's bad side, you're usually going to have a hard rest of the job.
The Steindorfs have filed a claim with the city. If the city's insurance decides there isn't fault on the city's part, the Steindorfs would have to file a lawsuit to get anything back, and that's something that they aren't sure right now if they want to do.
It becomes costly as well on top of it. A story we'll keep an eye on. Amy Reed reporting. Amy, thank you. A dangerous type of tick has now been spotted recently in Wisconsin. This is called the Lone Star tick. Normally only found in the southeastern portion of the United States. They can attach, however, to birds and other animals and make their way north. Physically, you've got a distinct look with that white spot in the center of their back, but it's the side effects that come along with a Lone Star tick that really stand out.
Cases of people who've been bitten by Lone Star ticks, and then, you know, whenever they have beef or I think lamb too, you know, any of the red meats, they can develop even life-threatening kind of shock.
Now, in the past, experts have used data to map where the arachnid is most commonly found. Dane County and Rock County are both areas of concern. We take a look at our weather now. Chief Meteorologist Gary Canalti in our first alert forecast. Gary?
Our temperatures are warming up today, but the humidity levels are low, so it actually looked like a pretty quiet day overall. In fact, if we take a look at the time lapse from the WISC Skycam from this morning through this afternoon, lots of sunshine, just a few cirrus clouds overhead, and even those thinned out as we got close to sunset. And as we take a look at Doppler track right now, there are some thunderstorms through the Chicago area, but these are going to stay south of the Wisconsin-Illinois state line. Not looking for any rain tonight. I've taken the rain out of the forecast. However, high temperatures today made it up into the mid-80s with the low humidity, though. It felt pretty comfortable. Current temperatures are in the upper 60s to the lower 70s, and we'll be looking for temperatures to drop into the upper 60s by early tomorrow morning, but there'll be more humidity and some thunderstorms late in the afternoon into tomorrow night. Some of those could become severe. Our high temperature tomorrow at 86. That's your News 3 Now First Alert forecast.
Gary, thank you. Fireworks, food, and a full slate of music. All things to look forward to at the 5th edition now of Shake the Lake. That's this Saturday in Madison. The weather will play a role there. Temperatures expected in the 90s. Officials are providing extra opportunities for folks to stay hydrated during the festivities. They are permitting everyone to bring in one 20-ounce factory-sealed water bottle into the event zone. They'll also be providing water refilling stations. A final goodbye to a Wisconsin hero. Fellow officers, friends, and family gathered in Racine for the funeral of Officer John Hetland, a 24-year veteran of the force. The service included a procession and honor guard before burial at West Lawn Memorial Park. He was killed during an armed robbery last week. Authorities are still looking for the shooter. Democratic lawmakers say the state's 2-year spending plan misses the mark. GOP leaders, meanwhile, say it is a responsible budget and are calling on Democratic Governor Tony Evers to sign it. Rose Schmidt explains what happens next.
Governor Tony Evers has already shown he's not shy about vetoing bills he does not support. But whether or not he will veto the state's budget in its entirety remains a mystery.
He should sign it. I think he, and I think he will. I've urged him every time that we've met in his office to really give that a lot of thought.
Ultimately, he has always said he will do what is best for Wisconsin, and we look forward to supporting the governor in that decision.
Ask the Republican and Democratic leaders of the Senate what Governor Tony Evers should do next, and they'll each give you very different answers. The budget passed by the state Senate and Assembly this week doesn't have many of the governor's top priorities, including Medicaid expansion, a gas tax increase, and legalization of medical marijuana. Republicans also amended the budget last minute, aiming to make it line item veto proof. The plan increases K-12 school funding by $500 million, but that's about a third of what Governor Evers wanted.
The K-12 number that we put in there is so significant that if there's no other reason that he should sign the document, not veto the entire thing, it's the money that we put into K-12.
Misses the mark on funding our schools, particularly special education, which I think every school superintendent around the state could nod their heads.
If Governor Evers throws out the entire budget, he'd become the first Wisconsin governor to do so since at least the 1930s. At the state capitol, I'm Rose Schmidt for News 3 Now.
Wisconsin state lawmakers have not overridden a governor's veto since 1985. Republicans are still in control of both houses, but they would not have enough votes to override an Evers veto without some Democratic support. The first Democratic presidential debate just wrapped up tonight in Miami. It featured 10 of the 24 candidates running for president. The second hour of the debate was momentarily derailed by technical difficulties. A second debate featuring 10 more candidates will happen tomorrow on that same stage starting at 8 o'clock Central Time. UW-Madison officials will raise the rainbow pride flag outside the two unions. The flag has been flying above the Capitol and the Madison Municipal Building all month long. Chancellor Rebecca Blank at UW-Madison released a statement today that the flag will fly on campus tomorrow and through the weekend in honor of the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall Uprising. Big day today for Exact Sciences, holding a ribbon-cutting ceremony for its new 169,000 square foot facility just off the Beltline. The Madison-based company created the first at-home colorectal cancer screening test, Cologuard. And with the new building, it can now process millions of tests every year. It is a sign of summer. Concerts on the Square back for the first time in 2019. She is just 17. The Wisconsin Chamber Orchestra kicking things off with featured performer Sakurako Erickson on the piano. You just saw her playing, a 17-year-old who won the orchestra's Young Artist Concerto competition. Tonight, the first show of the season. They'll continue every Wednesday through July. And speaking of summer, Summerfest in Milwaukee kicking off today as well. The big gig will take over that city for the next 11 days. The final day of that festival is set for July 7th. Still ahead tonight on News 3 Now at 10, doctors call it the cruelest disease you've never heard of. How one local family is coping and raising awareness about the disease in a story you will only see on News 3 Now. Welcome back. Not all dementia is Alzheimer's disease. However, few people realize that dementia can impact younger adults. In fact, the #1 form of dementia for people under 60 is a disorder few of us have ever heard of. Susan Simon joins us now with more. Susan?
Eric, it's called frontotemporal degeneration, or FTD. It attacks the part of the brain that affects speech and personality, and it is frequently misdiagnosed as depression. The majority of cases happen in patients between 45 and 64 years old. Given the devastating toll that this takes, more needs to be known about FTD, and that's why an Iowa County family is sharing their story.
In 2010, he actually came to me and said, something's not right. I don't feel right, something's not right.
What did he mean by that?
He could not verbalize it. He just said something is not right.
Rita and Chuck Trevorrow live in the small community of Livingston and have 2 grown children, daughter Alyssa and son Kyle.
How long have you been married, Chuck? Do you remember how long you've been married? It's been a long time.
20 years.
It'll be 29 in August.
29.
At 56, Rita says Chuck started losing interest in work and family activities and displayed behavior that was out of character for him.
With the FTD, you often see, and we saw a lack of empathy, OCD behaviors that got kind of extreme at times, having to constantly check the mail. Like there was one point where every 3-4 minutes, check to see if the mail was there.
Just the lack of motivation to go out and do things, more of just wanted to be home and wanted to be by himself, and kind of just went back in the bedroom. And I mean, there's some days where he would just lay in bed for hours upon hours.
Rita took Chuck to the doctor, who diagnosed him with depression.
She was sure that this was the worst case she'd ever seen, and she wanted to put him in the hospital, have electric shock treatments done. We switched doctors again and started with another doctor. And he took a couple years adjusting meds and just kept adding meds on, just more meds, more meds, more meds. So we're about 5 years into it at this point. And I just kept saying, there's just something that's not quite right.
Eventually, Chuck and Rita went to a neuropsychologist and waited 11 months for an appointment for cognitive testing.
And they did like 5.5 hours of cognitive testing. It's a full day's worth of testing. That's basically when they told us that he had the frontotemporal degeneration or frontotemporal dementia.
Did you think, well, that's not possible, he's in his 50s?
I did, because they kept doing the Alzheimer's screener. Well, he always scored 0. He always came out as nothing for Alzheimer's. Well, that's the only kind of dementia that anybody really knows about right now. Even in the medical profession, they're not that familiar with FTD.
Why don't we know more about this?
Yeah, I think it's because, first of all, we're not doing as much research on frontotemporal disease as Alzheimer's. There's not as many people.
Dr. Robert Perbelski is a geriatric physician who works with FTD patients at UW Health.
We're in the dark ages of these neurodegenerative diseases. I mean, we've been studying Alzheimer's disease for over 100 years, and we still don't know what these proteins exactly do.
Dr. Perbelski says the Trevorrow story is a common one.
Usually it's not the patient saying something feels off, it's the family saying something feels off. They're in a restaurant and mom says something she never would have said before about the waitress, things like that. And unfortunately, the patients are usually the last to, if ever, have a sense that there's anything wrong.
Unlike Alzheimer's, where memory loss is the first troubling sign, people with FTD often have no awareness that anything is wrong. Today, there is no treatment and no cure.
Their loved one is going away. They're gone. They're not the same person they married or knew when they were in high school. So it's devastating any way you cut it.
How are you doing?
I'm doing okay.
You seem incredibly strong.
I have 2 great kids that help a lot.
Yeah.
The Trevorrows are taking things one day at a time and say Chuck's diagnosis has made their family stronger.
Now we cherish those little moments that before maybe you wouldn't think anything of, but now when you have those good days or those good little moments, you really appreciate that.
What do you see coming down the road?
That's hard because every person with dementia is different. It's really hard to plan for down the road. It's really hard to know where this journey is going to take us and when.
There is a lot more information available online about FTD, and we have links to 2 organizations on our website, channel3000.com. And my thanks to Chuck and Rita for talking about this, because it is not easy, but they did it in the hopes that maybe someone will hear something and think, that sounds like what we're dealing with.
You hear about
maybe it'll lead them there.
You hear about early onset Alzheimer's, but you hadn't heard about this before.
All right.
This will raise some awareness.
I hope so.
Nice to have you in tonight. Thanks for being here. Let's turn to Gary now. He's joining us to look at the forecast and the heat that's heading our way, Gary.
Yeah, the heat's heading in, so is the humidity. We'll see some thunderstorms, and then it'll really take hold for the weekend. Now, as we take a look, first of all, at alert days that we have in the forecast, we have one for late tomorrow afternoon into tomorrow night. There could be a round of thunderstorms with the potential for some hail, high winds, and heavy rain in the strongest thunderstorms. You may see a line of storms sweep through southern Wisconsin that develops up to the north and then kind of comes on through. And then after that, we could see more in the way of heat and humidity as we head into the weekend. So we have additional alert days for Friday, Saturday for temperatures up around 90, heat index values perhaps as high as 98 degrees at times. Sunday, probably our best chance of hitting 90 degrees with heat indices generally in the mid to upper 90s. And even on Monday with high temperatures in the upper 80s, the high humidity still leading the heat index values between about 90 and 95 degrees. Now tonight, things very quiet across Wisconsin. Clusters of thunderstorms developed not far to our south across parts of northern Illinois and went through the Chicago area, but those will stay away. The Storm Prediction Center has taken the marginal risk of severe thunderstorms out for late tonight for southern Wisconsin, but still for tomorrow, there is a slight risk over southern Wisconsin. Again, we may see storms fire up in central Wisconsin and then move through the southern part of the state late afternoon into the evening and early overnight hours. And then on Friday, depending on where there might be a little discontinuity in temperatures because of where the rain cools the air and where the warm and humid air still stays to the south, there could be additional thunderstorm development on Friday, a marginal risk for severe thunderstorms there, but that's highly dependent on whether storms develop at all. It's possible we could stay dry on Friday and just see those temperatures climb close to 90 already. As far as rainfall amounts, it'll be spotty. There'll be areas that pick up between 1/4 and 1/2 inch of rain, maybe even less than that, and then there'll be spots where 2 or 3 inches of rain are possible where the heavier thunderstorms train on through. It's hard to pick the exact spots, but again, this computer model forecast shows that there's the potential for heavy rain, at least in a few spots. The time lapse for the Queen Bee Radio Skycam in Platteville shows the hazy sunshine giving way to a little more clearing as we headed into the evening hours, and actually it's been pretty nice out there all day. It's been warm. In fact, as we check out the live view from the WISC Skycam looking back toward the Capitol, it's warm out there, but the humidity level's still not too bad. The almanac for today shows a high temperature of 85 degrees, the low temperature at 58. Right now we're sitting at 68 degrees with mostly clear skies. The air is calm. The dew point temperature, which has been in the 50s, has now crept up to 61, and that will continue to climb with time. High temperatures today were in the 80s, even into the Lake Michigan shoreline areas. Not much of a lake breeze today. Tomorrow that may kick in late in the afternoon, but temperatures still in the 70s close to Lake Michigan and over western Wisconsin, and in the upper 60s elsewhere. Jet stream right now west to east, but it starts to become more southwesterly. This will start to transport more humidity and moisture northward, right behind a warm front that'll be swinging through here with that thunderstorm development late tomorrow, and then that's when the heat and humidity take hold Friday into the weekend. So overnight, I've taken the rain out of the forecast. Partly cloudy, mild and muggy, low at 67. For tomorrow, variable cloudiness, very warm and humid with a high of 86. Could see thunderstorms develop mid to late afternoon, more likely tomorrow night. So on future track, you can see quiet conditions overnight. Lows in the upper 60s, highs tomorrow, mid-80s. Here come the thunderstorms late in the afternoon into the evening and overnight hours. Then those drop to the south, lows in the upper 60s for tomorrow night, and then high temperatures in the mid to upper 80s at times on Friday. Rainfall amounts, again, spotty. Some areas could pick up an inch or two of rain, other areas picking up a lot less than that, just depending on where the storms track through. But the 7 to 10 day forecast, again, you see the heat and humidity, temperatures up around 90 for the weekend into the early part of next week, and even then, temperatures staying in the mid-80s through the 4th of July holiday with some thunderstorm chances, but also a lot of dry hours in there as well. So, you know, just have to work around the thunderstorms.
Well, like we said, a lot of people have been looking forward to a little bit of more summer-like temperature. We've had such a long, cool stretch. It's coming.
They're going to get it.
Here it comes. All right, Gary, thank you. One Milwaukee MVP talks about the city's other MVP. There's Christian Yelich. His thoughts on Giannis next.
Fully appreciate it.
The Brewers start this night, a game behind the Cubs in the National League Central standings. Brewers sent Adrian Hauser to the mound tonight, replacing Jimmy Nelson in the starting rotation against the Seattle Mariners. But Hauser, like most every Brewers starter lately, can't get out of the first inning without falling behind. Omar Narvaez drives in a run here. Hauser allows 3 runs in his 2 innings of work. Here's the Brewers highlight tonight, though. Seattle left fielder Mac Williamson dives to make the catch, but he misses. That gives Ben Gamel an inside-the-park home run. It's in the 9th now. Mariners 4, Brewers 2. Atlanta leads the Cubs 5-3 in the 7th at Wrigley Field. Fan voting now open for the starters for Major League Baseball's All-Star Game next month in Cleveland. 3 Brewers in the final cut: Christian Yelich, Mike Moustakas, and Yasmani Grandal. Fan voting runs through 3 o'clock tomorrow. The winners will be announced tomorrow night. The other night, when Giannis Antetokounmpo won the NBA's Most Valuable Player award, another Milwaukee MVP, the Brewers' Christian Yelich, knew exactly what Giannis was feeling. Yelich won the National League MVP award last year, and he was happy Giannis accepted it the way he did.
Just speaking from being in a similar position, you envision the moment, but you don't really fully appreciate it or understand how it's going to hit you until you're in the middle of it. And I think it was pretty cool that it was raw, emotional, and exactly how it should have been.
Madison Mallards won again tonight at Warner Park. They beat the Green Bay Booyah 10-4. Tomorrow night, the Mallards home again as the Fond du Lac Dock Spiders come to Warner Park. The Vanderbilt Commodores are the champions of college baseball. In Omaha tonight, Vanderbilt beat Michigan 8-2. That was the deciding game of the 3-game final series. Vanderbilt also won the NCAA baseball championship in 2014. Of course, Janesville Craig graduate Jack Blumgren is starting shortstop on the Michigan baseball team as a sophomore. No games in Women's World Cup action today. The quarterfinals resume tomorrow with Norway against England. Friday afternoon at 2 our time, the top-ranked United States team plays France, which is ranked 4th in the world. Now, even though it's 1 against 4, it could be the United States' toughest test of the whole tournament, playing a very good team on their home soil in Paris Friday.
They're an excellent team, I think, both defensively and offensively. I think offensively they're pretty explosive and unpredictable. I think they have a lot of firepower, and defensively, I think they're pretty sound. I think they have good vets in the back that are organizing the team, and then I think they're also a great set-piece team.
And they're starting to announce the class of 2019 for the UW Athletic Hall of Fame. Yesterday, the first inductee was football star Joe Thomas. Today's announcement is volleyball star Kelly Kennedy Sauer. She was a middle blocker for the Badgers from 1996 to 1999. She was the first Badger to be named All-American twice. Also, first team All-Big Ten 3 times. Badger volleyball 107 and 26 in her Wisconsin career. Kelly Kennedy Sauer into the UW Athletic Hall of Fame. And we'll be right back.
Gary's back as we take one final check of your forecast.
Today was a warm day. Temperatures were in the mid-80s, but the humidity levels are down, hit 90 in Mineral Point. But current temperatures are in the upper 60s to the lower 70s. As the humidity increases, those overnight low temperatures will stay up, and the high temperatures, mid-80s tomorrow, upper 80s Friday, then around 90 for the weekend. Alert days for heat Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday for potential for severe thunderstorms tomorrow night, and then warm weather next week.
Gary, thanks for joining us for News 3 Now at 10. Have a great night.